In the beginning, there was not much. Seriously, this was it. Just a dot bouncing around. There weren't even any flat screens or anything. No wireless controllers or Skrillex soundtrack. But then this became this. And that led to this. To that. To this. Remember this? And this? Probably not, but whoa. Did you see that? I don't even know what that was. Cool. It all started with that one dot. But games have evolved into so much more. Did you know that games can educate, help develop social and physical skills, and lead you to all kinds of exciting careers? Seriously, they do. You may have heard otherwise, that games can be an isolating activity, make you antisocial, and as a time waster. But that's not entirely true. Video games have evolved into a much more complex world.
This industry is amazing. It's like you get to star in your own movie where the decisions you make alter the storyline. And I was blown away by that concept. The video game industry was maturing from, being chased by ghosts and munching dots to more mature storylines with memorable characters, huge set pieces, intricate plot lines.
You can find people from all different walks of life in the world of games, and they all became interested for different reasons. Like Adam. He's a professor of video games. Yeah, that's a real thing.
What got me interested in the gaming industry is the ability of games to tell a really cool, engaging narrative in fascinating new ways. A lot of that is around interactivity. It's around the ability to use games to explore new spaces, both physical and digital, and combine them in really interesting ways.
I got interested in the gaming industry because I've always been a gamer myself, and I just think it's really fascinating how it brings together so many different types of creation.
As a kid, I really fell in love with games. When I would see a game or play a game or even just talk about games, it was very exciting. It was a very monumental experience for me. I'd go to school, talk about games, I'd go home, and when I had the internet, I'd talk about games. And the whole thing seemed so exotic and interesting to me. So that kind of really pushed me towards the industry.
It was a huge part of my life growing up, so getting into gaming was a great opportunity for me to do something that I grew up loving.
Graphics were evolving, sound was evolving more, orchestral soundtracks. Games were becoming huge, so not just a 1 or 2 hour experience. They were becoming these, multi-hour experiences, these adventures that were fully immersive. And when you finish them, you would sit back and you'd be like, oh my gosh, that was amazing.
One thing that really encouraged me to pursue development and making stuff, the game Pokemon. I played that game as a kid a lot, I loved it. And one day I'm like, I'm gonna make a website for Pokemon. I'd run home every day and I'd add to it. I'd make a button for it, I'd make a cool soundbite, I'd make a link. And that really, I think, got me in the mindset, thinking, hey, this is something I might want to do.
Doesn't feel like such a time waster, huh? Not for Emma Westacott. It started her on a creative career that spanned decades.
I became interested in games in the early 90s, really, because it seemed such an open sort of possibility space that enabled me to be creative and free. I first played games with my mum and got completely lost in hours of sort of gameplay. I became interested in making games because I played them.
One of the reasons gaming's become a part of our everyday lives is because of something called gamification. Sounds like a made-up word, but it's pretty simple. Gamification is using the idea that motivation plus action equals reward. And no one knows more about gamification than our friend Aaron. He's the VP of Marketing at TimePlay. You know, the game you play before the start of every movie?
Gamification is really at the core of what we do. It's the engine that drives ultimately engagement, the social aspect of the experience, because if you don't pique people's interest, then it's going to essentially be a flatline experience. So gamification brings people together, and it's more of a casual competition.
It's akin to a video game level that you want to complete or a boss character that you want to defeat. It's some sort of incentive that rewards you for progressing.
So it was essentially a great way to bring a bunch of strangers together in a space and connect them together socially, even though they know nothing about each other. There's nothing better than being in the middle of that type of experience.
This is a thing that all companies are looking at, and all companies are realizing that, hey, if we make things that we have in our apps and in our businesses more fun to play with and more fun to interact with and use, it makes everything better. It makes everyone happier, makes everyone more excited, more involved.
Gaming is the perfect way to develop some awesome skills. The opportunities are endless to build up physical, social, and mental abilities. These aren't your grandpa's video games. We're talking arcades, to simulators, to apps. Gamers are social creatures. They take turns leading and planning out different strategies with others to reach a goal.
There's so many benefits to video games that are often unappreciated and unacknowledged. The older generation may not see it as socializing because you're in front of a screen, you're very much strategizing and you're using tactics to work together to solve a problem. Often these missions require more than one person. Video games help sharpen dexterity and hand-eye coordination. They're great cognitively. You're figuring out problems and you're solving issues.
Whether you cooperate or compete with someone, there's no quicker way to form a bond than to play together. And for the wise guys who think that games don't get the heart pumping, think again.
And some games are physical, not just mental as well, like the ability to get up on your feet and play a game like Just Dance or Dance Dance Revolution. This is a lot of fun. It's social, it's fun for everybody in the family or for friends and siblings.
It's not easy, but games can make learning and training fun. Think about it. Would you rather write an exam or go through a simulator?
You can even look at things like surgery and medicine and things like that, where people often use games to improve coordination or to improve simulation, so they don't have to do something horrible to somebody while they're learning. In the 70s, they were using Atari games like Battlezone to train Army Corps. They were doing that for basic rudimentary hand-eye coordination and targeting and problem solving and situation awareness. But it can be used for whether it's training for, like I said, systems or management or social skills, or dealing with how to deal with somebody at the workplace or somebody you have to deal with at school, or how do you deal with a bully, or how do you deal with a really difficult situation on a job that you have. All that stuff can be handled through games.
Yeah, you tell him, Ben. All the fantastic things he mentioned don't just magically disappear once you leave the arcade either. These are skills that will carry on with you into the real world.
The types of skills, whether physical or intellectual, that come out of playing games are really useful for kids in a wide range of different types of applications. Whether it be learning how to socialise when you're playing Minecraft with a colleague in a different part of the world, or figuring out how to beat a particular boss in a particular mission. You're sort of really building up lifelong skills which will be useful for you regardless of what you end up doing.
That's right. They're a solid foundation for social and physical play. But it's also a breeding ground for empowerment and self-confidence. And when you believe in yourself, you're not afraid to accomplish what you set out to do. It can even help folks with special needs.
Some colleagues of mine in the UK do quite a lot of work with children on the autism spectrum, and they find that games encourage parallel play and children with special abilities to engage in different types of sort of learning approaches and learning tools.
So if you have a neurodevelopmental disorder, games are not only fun, but they can make your day-to-day life that much easier. This is Troy and Nadia. Troy is 26 and has autism. After he graduated from high school, his family noticed that there was a lack of support for adults with autism. His older sister Nadia came up with a method using, you guessed it, gamification.
Everybody loves to have fun, and people with cognitive special needs are no exception. The great thing about gaming is that it comes naturally to a lot of people with cognitive special needs. And so when Magnus Cards was developed, which is our first solution, it's a card collection game, kind of like Pokemon, and each card deck presents step-by-step instructions on navigating, taking the bus, going to the dentist, going to the doctor, anything that the individual needs to get through an adult life. So now when Troy needs to do these activities, he can follow along naturally, almost without hesitation, this character named Magnus. It's guiding him through the steps and helping him to memorize, to learn how to master it, and learn how to apply it in a real life scenario. So Magnus presents the problem, he sets the stage, kind of like in the beginning of a video game. So we use gaming elements to draw people like Troy in. He can also use the audio function, because as you've noticed, Troy is mostly nonverbal. He's working on his speech. He can advocate for what he wants, but he also uses this as a literacy tool. Then when you're done, Magnus rewards you with points. It's working in applied behavior analysis, so Magnus can come to life and be that guide and be that friend and help that person to reach the next level of independence, whatever that means to them. And then when he's done, he's empowered. And he gets like every other young man out there, he wants to feel like he's in control. He has agency, he has dignity. and he has a destiny of his own.
Thanks, Nadia and Troy. She used games to give a hand to her younger brother. This is another example of how powerful gamification can be. By now, you might be curious how all our experts got into games. How about it, experts? Got any advice?
The other piece of advice I would give anyone trying to get into gaming is to play as many games as possible, and you get to tell everybody that you're doing it for homework.
Video games for homework? Nice! But remember, everything in moderation. Video games might be research, but they're not a substitute for homework. And if you're more of an artist, there's a place for you too.
When I teach my students, I teach them how to make their very first game for the most part. And it's often a very frustrating struggle because that's how it is for everybody. But through software, we get them creating ideas very quickly, coming up with concepts on paper, making prototypes so they understand how games work as a structure and as a system. And then they get to rally in a team and actually make their very first interactive game. What they learn is that a lot of the skills that they already have from design and critical thinking can be applied to the very same thing. They just didn't know how yet.
When students learn through experience, they'll retain knowledge much better than if they were in a passive setting.
Gaming touches every industry, and I think that because it's not passive, and as a result, it's a lot more engaging, and I would argue impactful. So everything from a student who can benefit from, let's say, an interactive math app or a reading game, opposed to just plain text or a video that keeps playing on whether they understand the concept or not, to training purposes.
So I went to school for programming in Centennial College. It was actually a really great experience because it really kind of showed me that it's not scary. It's not this like impossible thing to do. Anyone can do it, everyone can do it. I think that's what school really taught me more than anything else was don't be afraid.
I came to OCAD after hearing about the Digital Futures program at the university fair, and I thought it was really interesting because you get to try so many different types of digital media, and I did hear that there was some gaming, which was my main focus. Tools for learning about games are really available. It's something that's not actually very hard to get into, and it's very rewarding. And I also want to say that playing games and making games are for girls too. Games are becoming more inclusive, which I think is really great. There's more different types of characters you can play as, different sexualities, different genders, and it's important for people to know that.
The future is all about play. The world of education is going to only become more fun as we bring more games into how we learn and how we talk about issues that affect us. I think we're going to have more interesting classes. We're going to have a lot more curiosity come out as well, because right now in the world, one of the safest places to fail is in a game. And a good educational experience means that you always have the opportunity to fail. And there's no better place to fail than where you can respawn. We can use games to explore both time and space, both thoughts and knowledge, as well as exploring concepts which might seem boring in class, but get really exciting once we put them on the screen. Games can be used to change the world. We can use games to explore different times, different places, and really get immersed into those environments and explore them in ways that we as humans living in the 21st century can't just go back in time. But through games, we can.
You just heard about how our experts got started. Here are some of the careers that gaming can lead to. Gaming can have you flying through the sky. Captain Rob can explain. Right, Captain Rob?
Simulation technologies and gaming technologies involved within that are probably most important to aviation because most people don't think twice about getting on an aircraft today. It's the safest way to travel. One of the main reasons that that is true is the fact that we're able to practice all the worst case scenarios in a simulator.
Better in a simulator than in the sky. Gaming can also help out nurse practitioners like Dr. Stinson.
Here at Sick Kids, we've actually just partnered with a gaming company up in Sault Ste. Marie called Algoma Gaming for Health to build a game for school-age kids who have arthritis. And this game, actually called Arthritis Invaders, allows kids to learn about the symptoms of arthritis, and they can actually battle those symptoms in the game by using strategies that they would need to learn. And it was a great process of working with this company because we also engaged the young children that had arthritis in the game development.
That's amazing! We'll hear more from Dr. Stinson later. If you want to get into writing, gaming's got something for you too.
The first couple of things I did out of my post-secondary was coming up with like indie projects that were digital. And so that kind of became part of the stuff that I did, and I started working in television, and I did the convergent properties, so that was often a game that worked with a TV show. And from there I went, more full-fledged gaming, just writing for games as opposed to games that were for TV shows.
I started writing reviews for small magazines to start in newspapers. That gave me a shot with having no experience. And then I was very fortunate to start writing for bigger and bigger publications. And then once you start writing for bigger publications, then you get invited to these networking events. So Activision or Electronic Arts may have an event, or Nintendo, and they'll fly you somewhere where not only do you get to see games early, but you get to sit with editors who look for freelance journalists like myself.
Way to go, Mark! And remember our Pokemon-loving friend Della? He got into programming for a company called Wrangle.io.
It was a startup when I started working there. I was the first hire, and I've grown with the company, and now we're huge, we're big. We're almost at 100 employees. I've done a lot of cool things, made little games on the side too here and there, and it's the best job I've ever had in my entire life.
Best job ever! And of course, games can be one of the best teachers out there. How, you ask? Video game professor, explain.
Through my experience studying philosophy, that I actually found a lot of interesting concepts coming out of there, which related to the gaming world. Should you or should you not save the villain falling off a cliff? Those are the same sort of questions we actually ask a lot in philosophy. And so this really got me thinking, how can we use games to explore concepts that in everyday conversation many people shy away from? When we learn, we want to ask a lot of questions. And good questions make for a good learning experience. And one way to learn how to ask good questions is by asking a lot of questions. So what that means is when we play games, we're constantly asking questions. Can I get through this door? Do I need a key to get through this door? What about this key? I have that key. Can I use that key to get through the door? And on and on and on. But then what we could also do in games is even ask, why is there that door there? What if I mod this game and make it different where there are no doors and I could go everywhere? What does that mean? And so what we're creating when we have these games used in a positive educational experience is an environment where everyone is on the same playing field and is able to have the same skills, which are really just inquiry. It's asking questions. Games are about asking questions, and good education is about asking questions. And the great thing about games is that they know what they don't know, and they're only going to tell you what they do know, which means you have to figure out the rest. And that's critical thinking.
Games encourage quick thinking, taking measured risks, and multitasking. They also offer visibility into deductive reasoning and problem solving, both very transferable life skills. What industries would want that kind of thing? Spoiler alert, a lot.
Every industry, I think, is going to benefit from anybody who comes in with a gaming background in development.
Gaming kind of offers a lot of opportunity for a lot of different industries. Gamified environments offer a great opportunity for to learn teamwork and team building as well as problem solving. So it really does expand across almost every industry.
And now there's the ability to make games with one person, with 5 people, with 400 people worldwide.
If that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what will. Maybe this. Medibot, activate.
Open Gangnam Style.
Medibot is used to distract children during uncomfortable procedures, and this thing can dance.
Medi actually is a robot that's about 3 feet tall that was originally brought into the Calgary Children's Hospital and used in a study to examine whether this robot could help distract children during immunizations that they would routinely get. And that study found that that robot helped to decrease their pain and decrease their stress about having a needle. So I thought, wouldn't that be great to bring that sort of technology to sick kids? We're the largest hospital in Canada, and kids are undergoing painful procedures in the emergency department, in the burn unit, and my particular area is cancer.
Incredible. Dr. Stinson helps with coping with pain, but that's not the only way games led to pain prevention. Plato Fontidakis runs Fast Motion Studios. He's done motion capture and stunts for movies like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Max Payne, and X-Men.
Motion capture in the gaming world is pretty interesting. We use a lot of different safer methods. Traditionally in entertainment, when we do a lot of action elements, stunt performers and performers are actually at risk of getting hit or injuries activities on hard concrete surfaces. In the studio, we can keep it in a safer environment.
Back at the hospital, Dr. Stinson showed us an app that she created. This isn't your regular Farmville or Candy Crush. This is about going undercover and solving mysteries.
With a company, we developed Pain Squad, which really puts the kids as sort of detectives in a police squad to uncover clues about their pain. We actually built a reward system using characters from Rookie Blue and Pain Squad to help engage children to complete these reports, because these are kids that are undergoing treatments that make them feel sick and unwell, and by putting this gamification in where they could start out as a rookie in the police force and move up to the chief of police, that really inspired these young kids with cancer to want to actually complete the pain diary.
Despite games helping you socialize, promoting people to join communities or guilds, being an effective teaching tool, boosting your reflexes and brain power, and being a great motivator, they still have a negative reputation. That just doesn't seem right. It's about time we change that.
When video games first debuted in the 70s and early 80s, it was very much for kids, and it was very much a solitary experience. But I think over the years, we've seen a lot of the benefits to gaming. Video games are inherently so rewarding because you are at the center of the story. And it's a much more gratifying experience because it's interactive and it's fully immersive. And it's only going to get cooler with virtual reality, where you are literally inside the game wearing a helmet.
People think that's a problem for young people to spend too much time playing games these days, but actually it can lead to sort of a creative career.
Games can nurture the skills that we use every day and nurture them in interesting and engaging ways. Who wouldn't love playing games and being in the game industry?
I think there's something really special about what's happening right here and right now, and for me it's exciting to be in an ecosystem where I can create possibilities for my students and for community members to sort of work together to collaborate on making interesting, great games. I've had lots of wonderful opportunities, but I always think that the opportunity that I'm in right now is the most exciting. So we use games to develop research thinking, to help a wide range of different types of sort of social application. I'm really interested in trying to attract more women and girls into making games, and I think that's a really important focal point moving forward. All different types of people can make games, and I think that there's no real good reason why we can't diversify the game industry.
Breaking down elephants of tasks into manageable steps, and to be able to use them to help people like Troy live with greater independence.
It's also a really great art endeavor. Like if you're learning about art, you get to see different kind of art styles and see how that works and what plays out really well.
I think I could be happy pretty much anywhere, because I think there's so many interesting things happening in gaming at so many different levels.
And it's fun. And I think that people forget that sometimes. It's important to have fun and to say, you know, this is the thing that I'm doing because I really enjoy it. And it's not a bad thing to do that.
There are no more excuses. That kid playing Dance Dance Revolution, that's fitness through musicality. That RPG, problem solving. Skee-ball, hand-eye coordination. The sports game, team building exercise. Winning at air hockey, that's a good date. That shooter, well, that's just fun. Choose a game and start playing. You never know where it can lead you.